Hello, my name is Ankur Shukla. I'm a board-certified vascular surgeon and assistant professor of surgery at the University of South Florida. Welcome back to the Clean Scalpel. My goal, as always, is to make myself and you a better technical surgeon, and my real goal is to make you think about surgery like athletes think about their profession. It's been a long hiatus, but we're back, and today we're going to review the basics of handling a needle driver. We're going to review the two most common ways to handle the needle driver, the pros and the cons that each have with it. We're also going to go over some common pitfalls I see medical students and residents make early in their career. And finally, and most importantly, we're going to talk about ways to practice this. Now, this is going to be the easiest part, especially for this topic. So let's jump right into it, the two most common ways. And for this, really, we're just going to need any needle driver that you may have. Now, what I do recommend is that you work with a hemostat of any kind. There are a lot of peel packs around the hospitals, and I think I've actually had this since I was an intern. And the reason that it's good is because unlike the OR instruments, they tend to work a little bit better, but these hemostats actually don't work as well. And you'll see that when it doesn't work as well, you can practice. And then when you do get into the operating room, things will work a little bit easier for you. So let's get rid of all the other instruments that we're not going to use this time. And let's just focus on the two most common ways to handle a needle driver. Now, the simple delineation will deal with whether or not you're going to put your fingers inside the holes or not. So the first most common way is to take your thumb and your ring finger and slide those two inside the actual holes. The hard question is then what to do with your index finger. And the index finger is always, for both tactics, is going to supply some support. That's going to supply the third point that's going to give you a lot more control over the tip of the needle driver. Now, the pro with this technique is that some people believe that they have a lot more control by the fact that their fingers are inside the holes. The downside, some would argue, is that you cannot get the same range of motion that you do with the other technique. Now, I'm going to argue a little bit against that because as you work on your pronation and your supination, you'll notice that you can get as much range as you need with your fingers actually inside the holes. The second technique, this one, I think people find it a little bit more sexy, but again, it's really what you're comfortable with, is not having the instrument in your fingers, but actually palming the instrument. The palming of the instrument, one of the holes rests next to your thenar prominence, and the other one next to your hypothenar prominence. And the nice thing about this is you can grip it, and some people say it allows for a full range of motion. Why? Because you can rotate the needle with your hand. This is really impossible with your fingers in the hole. You can't truly rotate it without taking your fingers out, and that is a wasted step. So it allows for full rotation. The downside of this technique is that you actually have to develop some thenar strength to be able to open and close the instrument. Now, I actually had to work on this myself and had to keep strengthening my intrinsic muscles of the hand to actually get this to open and close consistently. The question is, what do you do with your index finger here? The same thing. You want to use it as a third point of fixation so you have control over the needle driver. Okay, so those are essentially the two basic ways. I think fingers in the hole requires less work to master it. I believe the palming technique actually takes a little bit more technical practice to be able to proficiently open and close the instrument. Now, let's quickly talk about some of the pitfalls I see medical students and early residents make. One of the most common ones is this right here. They have their fingers inside the holes, okay? They're using usually their thumb and their middle finger. Why? Because they feel a little bit more comfortable with it, but they use the index finger to really hold it at the base of the driver. Now, that's okay, and it gives some people the semblance of control, but as you extend this further out, you'll notice that you actually have a little bit more control. And that can really only be achieved by putting your ring finger in that location, because then the middle finger gives you a little bit more support. So does everybody see that? So the most common thing I see when I go walk by and see medical students or interns doing this is that their index finger sits here, their middle finger is here, and they're working way back here. As they grab the instruments, they still have the same kind of control, but as you move to a longer instrument, you'll notice that you lose some of the control at the tip of the instrument, versus the appropriate way to hold it, you get a little bit more control of the tip. Okay? Same thing with palming. Index finger out, you get a lot more control. The other pitfall I see with most students is that they will, in fact, try to palm the instrument, because again, I think some people believe that it's sexy, but when they do that, they will take the bite, put their fingers back in the hole, then open it and reload. Okay, so it's an unnecessary step. So unless you're really willing to practice that you can do the whole motion with just your hand, it's really a little bit of waste of efficiency. So those are just the basic pitfalls. Now finally, let's just talk about a way to practice. Now, one of my fellows, Nathan Fernandez, he gave me some very, very good advice, and actually he might be the one that may have given me this needle driver, and he said, just keep this in your pocket the whole time. So I kept it in my white coat, and when I was not doing anything or walking from ward to ward, I would always keep my hands on this. Now, because I wanted to be proficient with both, I would alternate days where I'd keep my fingers inside the hole and practice the rotation, and on the other days I would palm it, opening and closing it as we were moving through rounds. So guys, I really appreciate your time. We're back. I have a series of things we're going to get to and talk about. I'm really excited for this. Please, if you have any questions, please comment below, subscribe. I'm really excited to get this going after a long hiatus, and I'll see you in the future. Thank you.